Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Kartals. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari. Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Paravajakacharya Ashtotirtha Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Paravajakacharya Ashtotirtha Shri Srimad Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavini Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktavinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this 19th day of March 2025 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And we are in chapter 2, the contents of the Gita summarized, text 19 on page 85. Ya enam veti hantaram yash chainam manyate hatam ubhav tau nabijanito nayam hanti nahanyate yaenam veti hantaram yaschainam manyate hatam ubhautau nabijanito nayam hanti nahanyate yaenam veti hantaram yaschainam manyate hatam ubhautau nabijanito nayam hanti nahanyate yaenam veti hantaram yaschainam manyate hatam ubhautau nabijanito nayam hanti nahanyate. Dharma. Yahenam veti hantaram yaschainam manyate hatam ubhautau nabijanito nayam hanti nahanyate yahenam veti hantaram yaschainam manyate hatam ubhautau nabijanito nayam hanti nahanyate. Ladies. Yaenam veti hantaram yaschainam manyate hatam ubhautau nabijanito nayam hanti nahanyate yaenam veti hantaram yaschainam manyate hatam ubhautau nabijanito nayam hanti nahanyate. Anyone online?
Yaenam veti hantaram
Yahenam veti hantaram
yaschainam manyate hatam
yaschainam manyate hatam
ubhautau nabijanito
ubhautau nabijanito
nayam hanti nahanyate
nayam hanti nahanyate. Mahima,
Yes, Prabhu.
can you chant?
Can you hear me?
I can hear
Yes.
you.
Yaenam veti hantaram
Yahenam veti hantaram
yaschainam manyate hatam
yaschainam manyate hatam
ubhautau na vijanito
ubhautau nabijanito
nayam hanti nahanyate.
nayam hanti nahanyate. Yaha, anyone who, enam, this, veti, knows, hantaram, the killer. Yaha, anyone who, cha, enam, manyate, thinks, atam, killed. Ubhau, both, tau, they, na, never, vijanitaha, are in knowledge. Na, never, I am this, hanti, kills, na, nor, hanyate, is killed. Translation. Krishna says to Arjuna, neither he who thinks the living entity the slayer, nor he who thinks it slain is in knowledge, for the self slays not nor is slain. Purport. When an embodied living entity is hurt by fatal weapons, it is to be known that the living entity within the body is not killed. The spirit soul is so small that it is impossible to kill him by any material weapon, as will be evident from the subsequent verses. Nor is the living entity killable because of his spiritual constitution. What is killed, or is supposed to be killed, is the body only. This, however, does not at all encourage killing of the body. Vedic injunction is ma hingsyat sarva bhutani. Never commit violence to anyone. Nor does understanding that the living entity is not killed encourage animal slaughter. Killing the body of anyone without authority is abominable and is punishable by the law of the state as well as by the law of the Lord. Arjuna, however, is being engaged in killing for the principle of religion and not whimsically. Om jnana timirandasya jnanandana shalakaya chakshu unmilitam mena tasmai shri gurave namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. This disciplic succession. So Krishna is reiterating here that the body is temporary, obviously. It is very fragile. It can be destroyed by so many ways, and if nothing else, by old age and disease. But the soul is not. So to think, neither one who thinks the living entity the slayer. So if no one is, ultimately if the soul can't be slain, then there's no slayer. But because we're on the bodily concept of life, we're thinking we could be killed. We're thinking that we can kill. And we're thinking that this is going on. But actually, the essential soul, which is the actual self, is neither born nor dies. And that will become very clear in the next verse. So why is Krishna emphasizing this point? Well, on the largest level, for the great audience of all those who will hear and read the Bhagavad Gita in the years to come, this was spoken 5,000 years ago, because this principle of understanding that we're spirit, that we're consciousness, that we have been in previous body or bodies, and will have a future body, is foundational to spiritual understanding and our desire to practice devotional service. Because the whole idea in yoga, bhakti yoga, is to develop our consciousness in such a way that the next time we leave this body, we don't come back to another material body. Not that we become bodiless, but we get a spiritual body. Satchit Ananda body. This is a wonderful word I knew before. It's a well-known phrase, Satchit Ananda. Sat is eternal, Chit is full of knowledge, and Ananda is full of bliss. The distinction between Ananda and the greatest pleasure you can experience on the material plane is that one of the things, it doesn't end. It's not temporary, which is, we know that all kinds of pleasures in this world are temporary. Certainly those based on sense gratification, because it's limited. There's a limitation. And indeed, yehi sangsparjita bhoga dukkha yonaye evate. This is the 20th verse in the 5th chapter, or 22nd verse, I think. That the pleasures that come from the contact of the senses with the sense objects, intelligent people, Krishna says here, don't take part in those. Why? Because they know that, yes, there may be some pleasure there. There's certainly some pleasure. But it will result in misery. It's the source of all misery, and it's temporary, as a beginning and an end. Now, why does it result in misery? You may sit down to a very nice meal with unmentionable things, but it's well prepared, and it tastes wonderful, and it's great. So where's the misery? Well, first of all, if you eat too much, then it's immediate misery. But even if you're just very frugal, because it will help to bind you to this world. That will go into your consciousness, into your memory. Oh yes, it's very nice eating that. Then when it comes a point you're too old to eat like that, you can't. You'll think, oh, I wish I could eat like that before. I wish I could eat. Then you leave the body, and that's in your subtle body. Your mind and intelligence don't die when the gross body dies, and that will take you to your next material body, to your birth. Your cumulative desires, plus your karma activity, and an important factor in all this is that there are higher beings who are watching, not just the super soul. Krishna is in the heart of all of us, as we call the Paramatma super soul. He can expand, and this is we sense it, even the atheist, with the sense of a conscience. He says, I want to do this, but I know it's not right, so I'm going to restrain myself. That voice says that's the wrong thing to do. If that's the super soul telling it. Now, if you disobey that order, after a while, you become hard-hearted. Your conscience you don't even hear the conscience anymore. then you're in the demoniac category and very dark future. But the basic principle of we're embodied souls, the dehi. The word deha means body in Sanskrit. Dehi means someone who's in the body. You remember the famous verse? This is a verse worth memorizing if you're into that. Dehinosmin yata dehe kolmaram yovanam jara tata dehantara prapti dhiras tatra namuyati. So, dehina, the embodied soul, dehino asmin, in this body. Dehinosmin yata dehe, dehi in the body. Komaram yovanam jara. Now, koman means a little boy, but a little girl, komari, it goes through stages. From little child, yovanam, to a youth, and finally through that to old age. Tata dehantara praptiya. Similarly, yes, you went through these bodies. We go through hundreds of bodies if you want to count them. Each day the body changes a little bit, and after a few weeks or months or years, you can easily see that change. So we're all going through different stages in different bodies, right? Same soul, hasn't changed. And then finally, there's a big change where the body breaks down. It's just a complicated machine, and it breaks down. It's called death, and you go on to your next body. And the critical question is, this one, here. You never know. We could get 3 guys coming, so you sit here, if you could. This is the lady side. I know, but we have a rule. This is the lady side. Why? Hare Krishna.
Exactly.
All right.
If you want to go up higher in frequency, you got to let go of gender roles.
Yeah, okay. Oh, there you got a defective one. All right, we probably won't get anyone else. So, the soul is different from the body. The soul is permanent, eternal, and we are now in passing through different bodies. These stages, right? We can all remember when we're 10, maybe 12, or even earlier. So many experiences there, There's many things we forgot. But we were there in that body. And then gradually we turned into a full adolescent and like that. So all those are different bodies. Body changes, you can look in the mirror, it's changing, I've changed, But you haven't actually changed. Your body has changed. So that difference. So the idea is that the human body is a great gift. That's a great stage because there's so many lower bodies. We think, but not, there's so many different species of life. The Vedas say there's 8,400,000, but so many have become extinct from what's going on. But there's millions, right? Insects, there's a lot of fish out there. We can take any one of them, depending on the activities that we form now. I see these fellows going, even the ladies sometimes are on a bicycle, with a big surfboard, and it's so cold, I can't believe they can't go. But they're getting some kind of pleasure from that, right? But if you become attached to that, you can easily become a fish. Why not? You want to swim, you like to, So that's a demotion. We don't want to do that. We want to go up to make this our jumping off point to perfection, which is no attachment for the material pleasures, but all attachment to spiritual pleasure, which means serving Krishna, the all-attractive, all-loving, eternal personality, who's so helpfully speaking this Bhagavad Gita for our benefit. So this is he's reiterating. You shouldn't think you're the slayer. So he's telling Arjuna, don't think that you're going to be killing anyone. You're going to be promoting them to their next life, and because I'm here on the battlefield, they're all going to get a very higher birth. Even go back to Godhead. Simply because I'm going to be here and they're going to be thinking of me partially when they leave their body. So don't think you're going to kill anybody. And don't think that you're going to get killed. As I like to say, every body dies. Who can deny it? Every single body dies. Nobody dies. Wake up and open your eyes. You're not that body, you're a pure spirit soul. Chant the holy name and attain life's goal. That's the whole Krishna conscious movement in a nutshell. So if there's no discussion on this verse, we'll go on to the next one, which is a very famous verse. This verse kind of summarizes the whole chapter.
So I have a question.
Oh, go ahead.
So you said that if we remember some food we had at us, then we take birth again to enjoy that food. what if we attach to Mahaprasadam? Then what happens?
Oh, then before you attach to Mahaprasadam, that means there you attach to Krishna, because Krishna sanctifies. When we offer nice vegetarian food stuff that we prepared with love and devotion to Krishna, either on the altar or at home altar, then the idea is, we're not preparing it so we'll eat it, we're preparing it for Krishna's pleasure. And then we'll take the remnants, you see? So that food becomes spiritualized. This is a basic principle of Lord Chaitanya's movement. The chanting of the holy name and distribution of sacred foodstuffs. You go back to how Prabhupada started this movement, you know, how people didn't know anything, you know? But he started with the chanting, and he was speaking on the Bhagavad Gita. There were no printed Gitas, but he was speaking on Bhagavad Gita in classes. And then afterward, there'd be a kirtan, then a feast, then a talk, then a feast, then another kirtan. Oh no, a kirtan, talk, feast, another talk, kirtan, then a feast. So you had the chanting, and then you had the prasadam. And gradually he taught his disciples how to cook these incredible, you know, dishes that they never had thought of before. So that's different. If you're remembering, you know, all those nice Sunday feasts that you were at, when you leave your body, you'll go back there. Got it. Yes.
So,
But you need to speak into the mic. Sorry. No, sorry. That's the rule.
all right. Well,
Hare
I know
Krishna.
how to project, but I'll use a microphone.
No, but yeah, we have people online.
Oh,
YouTube.
hello, people
Yeah.
online.
Oh, yes.
Good day to you. So I wanted to kind of go back on the song that you sang, the song that you just sang to us.
The little poem, yeah.
So you said not to be attached, right, to material things.
Right.
So we can go a step further and understanding this greater awakening of understanding that we are not our gender, right? That is also an illusion, because if you're
yeah.
attaching to a material realm thing and saying, "Oh, I'm a woman," or "Oh, I'm a man," then you're just focused on your
Yeah.
job to procreate rather
Yeah.
than understanding that you're a fullness of a creative being that has
Yeah.
capacities.
So that's why I just say
many different
That's
energies.
why I just say human being. Human
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
So with man or woman, we should use our superior intelligence for restraining the senses, because we know that if we get attached to material things, it'll bring us back to another physical body. So the main problems we have, which Krishna emphasizes in the 13th chapter, birth, old age, disease, and death. This has been going on, is this cycle of samsara for since time immemorial. We want to stop that. And the way to stop it is by finding out how it works. It works because we develop attachments in ordinary life, if there's no Krishna consciousness, to the things that we do. When we get attached to persons, we get attached to things and places and all kinds of, they stay in our mind. The mind, intelligence, and ego don't die when the gross body dies. And that subtle body is the template upon which our gross body is there. So therefore, if we stay attached to the things of this world, we'll come back again to try to enjoy them in the next life. But if we're attached to Krishna and service to Krishna, we'll go back to Godhead. And I don't think you were here when I was meant to Satchidananda body, where this body is not Satchidananda. It's asat. Sat means permanent. Who can say the body is not permanent? Obviously. Chit, full of knowledge. Well, we have some knowledge, but we're not full of all knowledge. And Ananda? No. Ananda is ever-increasing spiritual pleasure. Now we have this flickering, temporary pleasures of sense gratification. Everyone knows it has a beginning and an end. But Ananda doesn't have an end, you see, because it's on the spiritual platform. Mm-hmm. So if we can, before we leave this gross body, we develop our consciousness, so we're thinking of Krishna, and we want to serve Krishna, and we are experienced in reciprocating with Krishna, then we'll be transported to the spiritual
Okay,
world.
one more question. So since you're talking about the attachments and how it brings us back here, so our attachments are basically, you know, like karma of like things that we have not yet looked at to understand that we have it within ourselves so that we can ascend and go back up to Godhead. So wouldn't you say that instead of bypassing and being afraid of attachments, learning from your attachments so that you can leave and go to Godhead?
The philosophy is that we purify our attachments. In other words,
But what does that mean?
that means that if we're attached to something on this material plane, like the sex, you know, then we can come back. We will come back again to try to enjoy that in the next life. That's part of our. But if we're able to become detached over the course of a lifetime, and rather that we direct that pleasure seeking to the idea of giving Krishna pleasure. Now we have experience of this. I'd like to give this example, a spiritual master. You have the example of the mother with a baby child, just maybe a few weeks old, say. So the mother is focused on, making that child comfortable and happy and feeding him and make sure he's well and all this. So she's doing that, and the child will reciprocate and give, show the mother maybe a little smile, no teeth yet, very nice. But there's this incredible bond between the mother and the child. But it's not like the mother is a reciprocal thing. Well, I'll feed you if you do this, this, and this. No, she just wants to feed, so the kid will be happy. She's taking her pleasure in the child's safety and the pleasure and comfort. So this is the closest thing we have on the material plane to this completely selfless love, where the pleasure you're getting is from the pleasure of the loved one. If the loved one is comfortable and happy and enjoying and pleased, then you're happy. And that's the way it works with Krishna. Krishna doesn't demand, something extraordinary from us. Simply that we become conscious of him and that we learn how to, just this chanting, just to chant his name is so pleasing to him. He's hearing about it. The connection is being made again. After all these millions of births, they're now thinking of me again. So from within the heart, he's giving us pleasure, peace. There's a certain, there's a benefit. That's why kirtan, is so popular. So that in this age especially, it's become much easier to practice this yoga. The chanting and dancing and taking prasadam and association. But yes, there are also things that we have to give up, that we there's always do's and don'ts. And if you do that, then you can make a quick advancement.
But wouldn't you also agree that anything material that people are attached to is like a symbolism of something that they're looking for inside of themselves? Like if someone is, you said, yes, addicted to sex, well then that's just really, they want an energy exchange with someone else, right? The understanding is that the relationships we have, and realize the pleasure comes from relationship, even from inanimate things. People have a big relationship with their phones. I mean, I take a walk every day, and half the people are in the... Well, that's fear. That's a fear of intimacy with other people. That's what it is, and with yourself.
So, but in other words, they're relating with an inanimate object there.
Exactly.
So that's a rasa. That's a relationship. So the relationships here are a reflection of the eternal relationships in the spiritual world.
Yeah.
That's why when you read about Krishna's pastimes, you'll find that he has a pastime where he's just a boy, a helpless boy, and is his mother. So that's a pastime with his friends. You see, and he also, of course, when he as Krishna, he becomes a master and servant, and also with the gopis. He also has that relationship. So they're in perfection there. There's no downside to that. They enjoy, and then they remember the enjoyment. They do it again, and it's always there. But in the material world, the same relationships are there, reflections of them. But they have a beginning and an end. Even if it's very fulfilling and there's no contamination in it, it comes to an end. And so that's a painful thing. And that, we've all been through that. I remember I had a set of friends when I was a kid. And I remember their names now. And then Randy moved away. Oh, my best friend Randy moved away. Oh, But after a little while, I get over it, But still, that's the nature of relationship. Ultimately, we lose the relationship with this body. The body breaks down, and then we go on to the next body. Anyway, let's go on to the next one, because this next verse is a key verse. Text 20. Oh, go ahead.
I have one question. So you said ego is forever, but I always thought that ego only exists in the material world.
False ego. No, there's real ego. Ego is the sense of self. Who am I? Now, 99.99% of the people say, "Who am I?" Well, I'll give you my own. What's on your driver's license? Is my name. Let's see the registration and driver's license. You went through the red light, Mr. Dolan. So let's see it. Oh God. All right. So that happened. But because I'm old and I didn't have any previous, problems, it just gave me a warning, thank God. So it's okay, what's on there? Well, your picture's on there, your date of birth, right? And color of your eyes, I think they have something like that. So that's identification. So that's our material identification. But it's temporary. That's not our eternal identification. So that's called the false ego, the false sense of self. I am this body, and here's my relationships here. I have a certain color, gender. Yeah, these are all temporary things. But so what is our, it's called our swarup, our actual eternal. That's given in a wonderful verse by Lord Chaitanya, who's no other than Lord Krishna himself, come recently to spread this chanting of the holy name, to teaching us the example of how to be a devotee of himself. So he was asked by his prime disciple, he surrendered to him, this is back in the early 16th century in India, in Benares. Says, and this was a greatly learned Brahmin, he had been a prime minister in the government of Bengal, but Lord Chaitanya came and he and his brother quit and they became great renunciants in Vrindavan. So he met Lord Chaitanya in Benares and he asked him, who am I? And why am I suffering the threefold miseries? What are the threefold miseries? We're all familiar with them, we may not know them as such. Miseries brought about by our own body and mind. Everything is fine, weather is good and everything, but I'm so troubled because my best friend just told me that, he's not going to pay me back the $1,000 he owes me. Oh, so that's a trouble. Other living entities, especially human beings. I always like to bring this up. I was raised as an existentialist. Back in the 60s, we'd read Jean-Paul Sartre and all this. There was one play he wrote called No Exit. And all I remember is this one line, hell is other people. Boy, can you imagine living like that? So he's really suffering from the adibautic miseries. And then there's the adidaivic miseries. We're very familiar with them, right? Los Angeles, the winds and it comes and blows and all those incredible fires came and the hurricanes are still blowing here and we have dangers of earthquake here. So these are adidaivic. They're caused by the devas, they're natural forces. You can't stop them. They're always happening. So these are different. So these are the threefold miseries. They pertain to embodied souls, you see. So we have the false ego. Oh, I am a 68-year-old. No, this is. I wish I was 68 again. A 68-year-old male, resident of San Diego. There's my name. Here's my address. These are all designations. They can change. They will change. So that's our false ego. So our real ego is here, and here's the verse. Jiva. Jiva means the spirit soul. Jiva swarupoi Kṛṣṇa nityadas. That's the teaching of Lord Chaitanya. It's Krishna himself. The sarup, the eternal identity of every living entity, ultimately, is to be a servant of God, a servant of Krishna. That's our sarup. And then he goes on. Second line is important. Kṛṣṇa tatastha shakti beda bed prakash. And this is very interesting philosophy. So we are also tatastha shakti. What is the tata? We're so familiar with the beach. You go down to the beach here, and whether low tide or high tide, there's a portion of the beach that's covered and uncovered, right, as it comes. So that part that's in between, that's like we are. Meaning we can either stay in the spiritual world by maintaining our relation with Krishna, or we can turn away and we can come to this material world. So we're kind of on the border. We can be overwhelmed by external nature, or we can stay in the spiritual nature. So our real ego, our real sense, our swarup, means your eternal identity, is to be in relation to Krishna with one of these relationships, as a servant, as a friend, as a parent, as a lover, even as the flute. The flute, is in Santa Ras, but generally you don't take that. So the relationships here are reflections of those. That's permanent. This is temporary, no matter how you relate. So we want to go from false ego to real ego. So we act on a real basis instead of just acting for personal self-aggrandizement or our extended, we should learn how to act at all times as a servant of Krishna, beginning with glorification. That's the idea.
So we can safely say real ego is Atman? the real
Well,
self?
the Atma is there.
Atman. Yeah.
We are the Atma.
Yeah.
But we are the conscious soul, but because of the nature of we're infinitesimal, we can be overwhelmed by the influence of the conditioned mind and the intelligence, so that we think we're something we're not. You think, who am I? I'm 70, how old am I? 77-year-old male, American, and here's my name. Yeah? Yeah. You know, but that's not me. You know, and you can easily see that because, well, I changed over the years. You know, at one point I was 68, 58, 48, 38, and one time I was 8. Yes, go ahead.
But right at this moment,
Yes.
are we not both?
Huh?
Are we not both?
Both what?
I mean, I have a spirit soul,
Yeah.
but I am also in this body. So right now I'm a 62-year-old male,
Yeah.
as well as
Well, no, it's no. Well, you have to see what does I mean.
exactly.
If
Isn't
you're
it
saying
not
I,
both?
if the I means, you know, I means this body, but it doesn't. The whole point of this chapter is that the ultimate sense of self, who itself is the soul. That's who you are. So he said, I am a spirit soul. I am a minute spirit soul, occupying this body, which has a certain name, place, gender, whatever it is. You see, but those are temporary. But the sense of being a soul is eternal. That's not temporary.
Right.
So we have to live on that eternal platform. The whole idea is to really live within this body, use this physical body and the senses and the mind and the intelligence to stay connected with Krishna in a mood of service. Like right now, the fact that we're hearing his words and discussing his philosophy and serving his great devotee by hearing his commentary, that's pleasing to Krishna. And so we're helping to make that, yeah, we're helping to purify our awareness of who we really are, and to gradually establish or reestablish that connection with Krishna. That's the whole purpose of this temple. You walk in, and everything reminds you of God. There's nothing here that you know is against that. The pictures, the sounds, everything. So that's the idea. We need to go on. I want to read this verse.
Silencing me?
Yes. I'm asking you to please tolerate. Now, do we start reading this verse at all? Okay, 220. Let's do it because this is a key verse. Time is limited. Na jayate mriyate va kadachin. Mriyate. Nayam bhutva bhavitava nabhuya. Ajo nityak shasvato yam purano. Nahanyate hanyamane sharire. Antonella, you learned how to do that. Can you know how to turn it off? Suresh, you know how to turn it off. Oh, he knows. Tapas, he knows everything. I mean, about that. Help her. She doesn't know. I taught her. Now she's a technician too, but she's not. All right, read the translation. Here we go. For the soul there is neither birth nor death at any time. He has not come into being, does not come into being, and will not come into being. He is unborn, eternal, ever-existing, and primeval. He is not slain when the body is slain. Purport. Qualitatively, the small atomic fragmental part of the Supreme Spirit is one with the Supreme. He undergoes no changes like the body. Sometimes the soul is called the steady or kutastha. The body is subject to 6 kinds of transformation. It takes its birth from the womb of the mother's body, grows is second, grows, remains for some time, produces some byproducts or effects, gradually dwindles, and at last vanishes into oblivion. The soul, however, does not go through such changes. The soul is not born, but because he takes on a material body, the body takes its birth. The soul does not take birth there, and the soul does not die. Anything which has birth also has death. And because the soul has no birth, he therefore has no past, present, or future. He is eternal, ever-existing, and primeval. That is, there is no trace in history of his coming into being. Under the impression of the body, we seek the history of birth, etc., of the soul. The soul does not at any time become old, as the body does. The so-called old man, therefore, feels himself to be in the same spirit as in his childhood or youth. The changes of the body do not affect the soul. The soul does not deteriorate like a tree nor anything immaterial. The soul has no byproduct either. The byproducts of the body, namely children, are also different individual souls, and owing to the body, they appear as children of a particular man and woman. The body develops because of the soul's presence, but the soul has neither offshoots nor change. Therefore, the soul is free from the 6 changes of the body. In the Katha Upanishad 1.2.18, we also find a similar passage which reads, Najayate mriyate va vipaschyan, nayam kutaschyan nababhuva kaschit. Ajo nityik shashvatoyam purano nahanyate hanyamani sharire. The meaning and purport of this verse is the same as in the Bhagavad Gita. But here, in this verse, there is one special word, vipaschit, which means learned or with knowledge. The soul is full of knowledge, or full always with consciousness. Therefore, consciousness is the symptom of the soul. Even if one does not find the soul within the heart, where he is situated, one can still understand the presence of the soul simply by the presence of consciousness. Sometimes we do not find the sun in the sky owing to clouds, or for some other reason, but the light of the sun is always there, and we are convinced that it is there, that is there for daytime. As soon as there is a little light in the sky early in the morning, we can understand that the sun is in the sky. Similarly, since there is some consciousness in all bodies, whether man or animal, we can understand the presence of the soul. This consciousness of the soul is, however, different from the consciousness of the Supreme, because the Supreme Consciousness is all knowledge, past, present, and future. The consciousness of the individual soul is prone to be forgetful. When he is forgetful of his real nature, he obtains education and enlightenment from the superior lessons of Krishna. But Krishna is not like the forgetful soul. If so, Krishna's teachings of the Bhagavad Gita would be useless. There are 2 kinds of souls, namely the minute particle soul, Anu Atma, and the super soul, Vibhu Atma. This is also confirmed in the Katha Upanishad 1.2.20 in this way. Anoraniyan mahato mahiyan atmasya janto nihito guhayam tamakkatu pashyati vita shoko datu prasidan mahimanam atmanaha. Both the super soul, or Paramatma, and the atomic soul, Jivatma, are situated on the same tree of the body, within the same heart of the living being. And only one who has become free from all material desires, as well as lamentations, can, by the grace of the Supreme, understand the glories of the soul. Close quote. Krishna is the fountainhead of the super soul also, as it will be disclosed in the following chapters. And Arjuna is the atomic soul, forgetful of his real nature. Therefore, he requires to be enlightened by Krishna, or by his bona fide representative, the spiritual master. So this verse kind of summarizes a lot of the ideas in this portion of the Bhagavad Gita. The Jayate Mriyate Vakadachan, there is neither Jayate, birth, or Mriyate, death for the soul. Nayam Bhutva Bhavitavanabuya, and it's not that new souls are being produced now and old souls are somehow being dissolved. No, the souls are as eternal, as it says in the 3rd line, as Krishna is. Ajo nityik shashvatoyam purano. This could easily be describing Krishna. Unborn, eternal, ever-existing, and ancient. Nahanyate hanyamane shirire. So this is especially pertinent on a battlefield. The soul does not die, or is not slain when the body is slain. You can think of like old age, disease as kind of ultimately you're slain by those things. So this is for Arjuna, because Arjuna is, what is the whole context? Arjuna doesn't want to fight, because he has a connection, an emotional connection with so many members on the other side, especially his grandfather Bhishma and his teacher Dronacharya. They happen to be on the other side. So Arjuna can't imagine how he's going to fight with them and perhaps kill them directly. So he said that if I win, suppose I win this wonderful kingdom, it'll be soaked with the blood of the people I love. So what's the advantage? Let me go to the forest, But he's not fit for that. So this is his dilemma. So all of this, nahanyate hanyamane shirire. So when their bodies die, they don't die. And we find in the Srimad Bhagavatam this wonderful scene where Bhishma Dev, he had a blessing from his father. the yogic, principles, that he would not die until he willed himself to die. So he's been shot through with these arrows, but he's lying on the bed on the battlefield, and he's not dying. So all the great sages and Krishna comes, and the Pandavas come to witness this departure of this great soul. Bhishma Dev is a great devotee, even though he's on the other side. And so he gives us a lesson there. It's amazing about in the Bhagavad Gita, his prayers, his final prayers are recorded there, and I memorized several of them. One is, so Krishna comes because he wanted to see Krishna, so he's standing there and he's lying on this bed of arrows, but he's not dying because he doesn't want to die yet. So there's Krishna. So then he starts praying. He's Tribhavanna Kamanang Tama Lavanang Rabagata Goda Varam Badang Dani Vapadala Kukulavatan Ananjam Vidya Ratadastume Nabadja. So what is he praying there? First of all, he's describing the scene. Tribhavanna Kamanam, here is Krishna, the most attractive, beautiful in all three worlds. Tamal Varnam, he has a darkish complexion like a tamal tree. Ravi Kadagora, his garments, his silken garments are shining like the sun. Ravi is the sun. And Gara is the rays, like the rays. He's seeing the Ravi Kadagora Varambalam Dadani. And his beautiful lotus face is surrounded by this nice curling hair. So he's just meditating on that form. And the last line says, Ravi Kadagora Varambalam Dadani. Vijaya Sakhe. So the Vijay is the victor. He's the friend of Arjuna. Arjuna is the victor of the battle. So Vijaya Sakhe. Ratamastume Nabadhya. Let my attraction be drawn to him and not be diverted to anything else now at this time of death. So this is the perfection where we can, whether we have a picture, we probably won't be in front of Krishna himself, but we can remember. Many times we saw the deities, so many paintings, beautiful pictures, the actual form of Krishna, the name of Krishna. That's the perfection of our life. It means at the point of death, to remember Krishna, and that will determine our next birth in the company of Krishna in the spiritual world. That's the whole point of this process of Bhakti Yoga. And Krishna is telling all the philosophy and like the next verse, which we don't have time for, but well, maybe we can chant it. No, actually, 21 is fine. We should do 21 if we can, unless there's some discussion on this verse. But there's no birth or death at any time, and we're unborn, eternal, ever-existing, primeval. We don't die when the body dies. That's the point of this verse. Text 21. Veda vinashinam nityam yainam jamavyayam katam sapurusha partha Kangat yati hantikam. O Partha, this is a name for Arjuna. How can a person who knows that the soul is indestructible, eternal, unborn, and immutable kill anyone or cause anyone to kill? Purport. Everything has its proper utility, and a man who is situated in complete knowledge knows how and where to apply a thing for its proper utility. Similarly, violence also has its utility, and how to apply violence rests with the person in knowledge. Although the justice of the peace, now Prabhupada really means a high court judge here, and I'm trying. Although the high court judge may award capital punishment to a person condemned for murder, the judge cannot be blamed because he orders violence to another person according to the codes of justice. In the Manu Samhita, the law book for mankind, it is supported that a murderer should be condemned to death so that in his next life he will not have to suffer for the great sin he has committed. Therefore, the king's punishment of hanging a murderer is actually beneficial. Similarly, when Krishna orders fighting, it must be concluded that violence is for supreme justice, and thus Arjuna should follow the instruction, knowing well that such violence committed in the act of fighting for Krishna is not violence at all, because at any rate, the man, or rather the soul, cannot be killed. So for the administration of justice, so-called violence is permitted. A surgical operation is not meant to kill the patient, but to cure him. Therefore, the fighting to be executed by Arjuna at the instruction of Krishna is with full knowledge, so there is no possibility of sinful reaction. So I remember when I was growing up and I was part of the peace movement. This is in the 60s. Those of you who know history, the Vietnam War was raging. And it went on and on and on into the 70s. So it was just so horrendous. It just seemed to be wanton violence and destruction of these people in Southeast Asia. So I was anti-war. And Prabhupada came, and of course speaking from Bhagavad Gita, the middle of the war, in 1965, it was raging, and there was a big peace movement, and the hippies were going on at the same time. And there was a lot of overlap. So the whole war, I mean, it was a peace movement. It wasn't that we were on one side or the other. You know, we just wanted this wanton destruction of human life to stop. It was just a horrible thing. So in the middle of that, here Prabhupada starts talking about actual good violence, right? But violence needs to, you know. But you can see that it's necessary. If there's some dacoits trying to rob a place and they have guns and so forth, and the police come and they arrest someone, they may shoot him if he's threatening someone's life. So who can argue that, oh, this is horrible violence? No, it's necessary at that time. And understanding that ultimately the person is not killed, the soul goes on, you know, but the violence is stopped, innocent people were saved. So there's a place for violence, but it has to be administered for the ultimate good and to bring justice about. That's the idea, and that's what this whole battle of Kurukshetra. This is 18 chapters in a very, very long book called the Mahabharata, which is a history of Greater India, and the main plot involves the gradual development of this battle of Kurukshetra. So, but Krishna arranged it so that before then, Arjuna was actually covered by Krishna so that the Bhagavad Gita could be spoken and he could be brought from the point of objecting to do his duty, which was ultimately for Krishna, to the point of yes, doing it on that basis, despite his distaste of having to kill his friends and relatives. Okay, so it's getting a little late. Any comments on that verse? Tomorrow, Monday rather, we're going to another wonderful verse where Krishna compares the body, an old body, to a set of old clothes. You see, just like I have this, but eventually it's going to wear out, and I'll get rid of it. Similarly, eventually the body will wear out, and you get rid of it, but you get another one. You get a new body. So that's the nature of death, is that you change. But we want to be able to know and determine how we can get the best next body. And the best next body is not a material body. It's a spiritual one, our eternal Sarupa. And that's what Krishna consciousness is all about. So I'll give you one verse in this regard. Lord Chaitanya spoke this verse to Sanatana Goswami, the same one I mentioned earlier. And he says, Kama dinam katinda katita palita dhurni deshas tesham jata mayana karuna nattapano pishantihi utsvijayata natayotapate sampratam labdha buddhis tvamayata kshadanam abhayam mam niyung svatmadasye. In how many ways have I sought to obey the seductive demands of my wicked desires? They've shown me no mercy, yet on I've gone shamelessly trying to quench lust's unquenchable fires. But now I'm rejecting these hellish desires, for my higher intelligence now has awoken. O Krishna, O shelter of fearlessness, please let me serve you with faith that will never be broken. Okay. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hari Hari Bol.